KFAN. I think I just stepped on Brett because that's what happens here. I'm Alec Lewis, filling in for Paul Allen. This has been a blast so far. Going to bring in a good friend who covers the Green Bay Packers. I guess, yeah, I mean, he covers the Packers. He's still a good friend. His name's Matt Schneidman. He actually does radio as well in Green Bay, so he's way more well-voiced than I am in this. Matt, can you hear me? How you doing?
You're just stealing my shtick. Starting out as a beat writer, then going to radio. What's this all about?
Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah, with the success you've had up in Green Bay, it's kind of what I had to do. Sorry, and I ran long, like 5 minutes last segment. So, I mean, this is just rookie vibes here. I'll start you with, I've got a lot of questions, and Brett, who is producing with me, is a Packers fan, so I'm going to let him hop in at some point. I just want to begin with, a quick vibe check from Packers fandom/mediadom. How would you describe just how Packers fans feel right now with where they're at?
Yeah, I think they're really optimistic about what this team can do, not only because of everything that's going on in minicamp and OTAs this spring. There are additions that they made with Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney, some of the draft picks that have them excited, but also just because of how they finished last season. They were playing with house money, really, the whole second half of last season, and then they take a lead into the fourth quarter against the 49ers in the divisional round and obviously blow it. But I think vibes are really high right now in Green Bay, and rightfully so. Are they going to win the Super Bowl? I don't know about that, but I think this quote-unquote rebuild has accelerated faster than maybe people envisioned in the first place. Very fair.
I'm going to let Brett get into the nitty-gritty of the team, but I want to get you on Aaron Jones. I know you have a lot of insight into what he brings to the table, both in the locker room and on the field. I'm just curious. You cover this guy for a bunch of years. Maybe just give the listeners a peek behind the curtain of what he was like to work with as a media member.
Yeah, he was the best. If there's anyone in my now 5+ seasons covering this team that I can say, ooh, it's going to be rough not having that guy in the locker room, it would be Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones was awesome. He was available. He was the nicest guy of all time. And, we can tell you that. The people behind the scenes at Lambeau can tell you that. I remember one time in the summer of 2022, I was at the Green Bay airport at 5 a.m. And at that point, I didn't really know if Aaron Jones knew my name, but he's there dropping off his mom and his son to fly back to Texas, I believe it was. And Aaron saw me in the airport. He said, "Hey, Matt, how you doing?" And stopped me at 5 a.m. to ask how I was doing, where I was going, and all that sort of stuff. That's just something really small, but he was the best, and I think he still has a lot of juice left. The Packers obviously moved on from him because they were able to get a guy younger, maybe more available, maybe with a higher ceiling than Jones and Josh Jacobs, but I think Aaron Jones is still one of the elite running backs in this league.
What was your perspective just on how that played out? I know, we talked about it. I remember texting you in the morning that I think he signed with the Vikings, or Josh Jacobs signed. I was like, what is, we had the back and forth, but just what was your perspective on how that broke down?
Yeah, I was just really surprised because Brian Gutekunst said at his, season-ending press conference, I believe it was February 1st, that he absolutely expected Aaron Jones back for the final year of his contract. Now, we know, we've been in this business long enough that general managers and head coaches are not required by law to tell us the truth at the podium. In hindsight, I'm surprised that Gutekunst said that, knowing that he was going to ask him to take about a 50% pay cut. I was a little surprised that it was that large of a pay cut, but it just reflected the Packers' ongoing philosophy that they want to get younger. I'm not going to sit here and say it was the right decision, it was the wrong decision, because we just don't know yet. We got to see how this season plays out. But I was definitely surprised, not only because of what the GM said earlier that offseason, but because of how big the pay cut was that they asked him to take. But I think you're going to see a vengeful Aaron Jones. He's a very kind, peaceful, happy-going guy, but I think you're going to see a Aaron Jones who has a point to prove, not only 2 times a year, but probably for the whole season.
I agree with you. We're talking to Matt Schneidman of The Athletic. He covers the Green Bay Packers. I am Alec Lewis, filling in for Paul Allen on the Fan. Matt, we're going to go to break real quick, then come back and pepper you with Jordan Love questions. Is that okay?
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Save the day for the 34th annual Polo Classic. The preeminent polo event in the Twin Cities is back Sunday, August 4th. The Twin City Polo Club. You can find out more at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Welcome back to 9 to noon on KFAN. My name is Alec Lewis. I am the Vikings beat writer at The Athletic, filling in today for Paul Allen for some reason. Again, I don't know why they do this, but I love it. So I appreciate them doing that. We're talking right now on the line to Matt Schneidman, who covers the Packers for The Athletic, because we had to break it up. And the producer today is Brett Blakemore, who is a Packers fan. And I'm going to give him the floor, just have him pepper you, Matt.
Yeah, I love that you did that, and thank you, because it's a tortured life being the producer on this station and being an outed Packers fan. It can be tough. It can weigh down on you at times. So I appreciate you and Matt being here. I have to start with the obvious elephant in the room. Do you have a timeline? What's the latest steam on the Jordan Love contract? Is there a timeline, and what do you expect to happen there?
Yeah, I would expect that to happen before training camp starts. Their first practice is July 22nd, so probably sometime before then, not long before then. But Brian Gutekunst was on our station here. I believe it's the sister station of your station, the game here in
Good plug.
Wisconsin, and Goody said that he would like to get something done before camp, but as I just said with the Aaron Jones stuff, we can't always take his word for what it is. Jordan Love did say to us before they broke for the summer that he's optimistic based on what he's heard that something will get done, or something could get done, I should say, before camp starts. The big question now is not when it gets done, it's how much is it going to be. And we just saw Trevor Lawrence get 55 a year, Jared Goff get 53 a year. Contracts are not based on, they are based on a little bit of what you have done in the past, but they're also a projection of what you're going to do. And Jordan Love's ceiling is extremely high, it seems, based on what he did the second half of last season especially, and in that first playoff game against the Cowboys. I don't think, and maybe this is crazy to say, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Jordan Love could be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL when his contract is done. Just think about it. Trevor Lawrence is tied for that right now. We would have never said that about him. So I don't think it's too crazy to say that Jordan Love could be that. And it could look like a bargain in 3 or 4 years.
It might, and I'm all in for it, by the way. I've been a Jordan Love hipster, basically. I thought he was great. I got one more for you. Jeff Hafley, it's not polite to call for people's jobs. It's not in good taste, but I was a frequent visitor of firejoeberry.com. I did not enjoy what he did at all. What's the early impressions of Hafley and the new defense?
Yeah, it's been nothing but good things. And I don't think, the praise of Jeff Hafley from the players should be equated to putting down Joe Barry. But Preston Smith the other day was joking, I think, maybe not, that he's going to finally get to consistently rush the passer. And he was laughing when he said that. And him and Joe Barry go back to their days with Washington together. But everyone has had good things to say about Jeff Hafley, the accountability he takes, the positions he's putting them in, kind of the aggressive style with which he plays. It's going to be different, schematically a little bit, because their defensive line, all of them are going to have their hand in the dirt instead of having, quote unquote, 2 outside linebackers. They're going to have 2 defensive ends. We'll see what kind of effect that has. As is the case with any kind of schematic change, we'll see how much change there really is when they get on the field, but nothing but good things from the players so far, both him as a person and as a coach.
Talking to Matt Schneidman, who covers the Packers. Wow, good stuff there. Packers 3-2. Covers the Packers for The Athletic. I am Alec Lewis, filling in for Paul Allen. Matt, I want to ask you about, the Vikings' favorite Packers player, without question. His name is Jair Alexander. I will never forget last year when he was suspended for the game. Justin Jefferson found out, and he was I remember him being like, really? Like he kind of wanted to torch him. Would he have? Who knows? But like, what is your perception of where Jair is in terms of confidence, comfort, where the team is with him, just how you see him fitting in there right now. What is your perspective on that?
Yeah, he talked to us once this offseason, and he announced himself as he came to speak to us that the best corner in the league has entered the chat. So his belief is still high in him. It's always been high. It was a rocky last season for him between a little bit of his play, the injuries, the discipline. He's in a really good spot right now, it seems. And I think that is in part because of the change in strength staff, change in defensive staff. He said that himself. Last year, he bypassed voluntary offseason work and cost himself, I think it was $700,000 in a workout bonus. He was at everything except minicamp this year, and he was excused from minicamp because his attendance and performance and participation in everything before that was so good. So they're in a great spot right now. He's still only 27 years old, still the highest paid corner in NFL history. He's still one of the best in the league at his position, I think, and I think those battles with Justin Jefferson are always fun to watch.
Agreed.
I want to ask you guys, I don't know what's happening with the Packers kicker battle right now. They have 3 guys in there, but it looks like it's going to be between Anders Carlson and Greg Joseph.
So it's funny. Before the show, I was sitting with Brett, again, who's a Packers fan.
Yeah.
And we were talking about like his topics. And as you just said that, his arms flew up in the air like he just saw a goal in the World Cup or something, I think, because he's so excited about this conversation. The Greg Joseph kicker competition, that is all you this time, Matt. I can give my perspective, but Brett, I mean, what do you?
I don't understand. Is it just I guess my question is it just to put pressure on Anders, or is it truly, do you feel like it's truly any man's job between him, Podlesny, and Greg Joseph?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of the first two. I don't think Podlesny really has much of a chance, but I think part of it was to put pressure on Anders. From late May last year all the way through Carlson's rookie season, he didn't have any competition. He was the only kicker on the active roster and the practice squad, and he missed a kick in 9 out of the Packers' last 12 games. And I think 5 of those were extra points, the most missed extra points in the NFL, including a 41-yard field goal that he missed against the 49ers in a 3-point loss. So it wasn't pretty for Carlson down the stretch. I will say, and Viking fans can resonate with this, his brother, Daniel, Vikings obviously had a very short leash. We cut him after 2 games in 2018. Then he went on to be a first-team All-Pro kicker. Granted, those struggles were over a shorter time frame than Anders Carlson's, but it was Rich Bisaccia who helped turn Daniel Carlson with the Raiders into an All-Pro kicker. Packers are hoping that Anders Carlson's rookie year struggles can be rectified by Bisaccia again here in Green Bay. But I also think while Joseph may have been brought in just to compete at first, he's also done some good things. He's got a leg on him. And I know you guys know that, but one of the things Bisaccia told us this offseason was he hasn't been good in Green Bay, kicking at Lambeau Field. We got to get him to be a little bit better. So I think it's going to be a battle between those two in training camp.
Yeah, the Greg Joseph experience, and I say this with all due respect to Greg, who's a great guy, was like, all right, he's running out there. Let's flip a coin. Heads or tails? He's making it. It could be from 30. It could be from 20. That's how it was, at least for me. We're going to do one more with Matt Schneidman, Packers beat writer for The Athletic. I'm going to give it to Brett to finish it off.
One more Packers question before they put us out of the listeners' misery.
Exactly.
The Packer going to Brazil week 1. When I first saw it, I thought, yay, we don't have to go to Philly, but oh no, they're going to Brazil. Like, I don't know how that's going to work. And I know that Josh Jacobs put his foot in his mouth about the wearing color green controversy. Have you been told anything from the league or from about how that is going to work, or is it business as usual like they would any other international game?
Well, I know what Josh Jacobs said. It just isn't true because there were a lot of locals in the comments of that tweet, his appearance on Chris Long's podcast, that clarified that green is the color of the rival soccer team to the city. I think it's Corinthians, which is where the game is being played at their stadium, and the rival team wears green, and that's why green is maybe front and fun. It's like wearing red in New York City. Yeah, I'm a Yankee fan, so that was the easiest kind of comparison to make. But logistically, I think the Packers are going out Wednesday The game's on Friday, so they're not going to go out there too far in advance. It's not like London where it's a 6-hour time difference. Brazil's 2 hours ahead. So while the flight is much longer, my flight, I'll be down there. My flight from Chicago to Sao Paulo is 14 and a half hours which is ridiculous. I'm not looking forward to that. But I know Mark Murphy mentioned at the owners' meetings that the Packers might not have a long enough runway in Green Bay. I'm not sure logistically whether they are going to be flying out of Milwaukee or whatever they're doing there, but it seems that at least Matt LaFleur is embracing this trip more than he did the London trip. He was very openly frustrated with having to change a bunch of stuff in his routine. All these guys are creatures of habit. I'm talking about when they went to London against the Giants in 2022, lost that game. That began their, 5-game losing streak. That's the game Aaron Rodgers broke his thumb in. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of embrace all the logistical aspects of it. But then also, this is week 1. You got to set the tone for the season against another NFC contender. Outside all the, sights and scenes and hoopla around it being the first Brazil game, Packers-Eagles is a damn good game to open up the season.
No doubt. That is Matt Schneidman, Packers beat writer at The Athletic. Matt, thanks for joining. Hopefully you get some time the next few weeks. I know this is kind of our time, so I appreciate it. Thanks for listening. My name is Alec Lewis. I'm in for Paul Allen. This is The Fan.
Find our Mall of America street team all summer long out at our events. Ask about our Mall of America mystery cards where everyone is a winner, and you can see where we'll be next. KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Welcome back to 9 to Noon. My name is Alec Lewis. This is KFAN. I typically cover the Vikings for The Athletic. I'm very comfortable with football. I grew up in Alabama. I am not comfortable with hockey, but I mean the test. It was an absolute test, Brett. I've got to do it, and I get to catch up with Michael Russo. We're gonna go 15 minutes with Michael, then hop with Dan Hayes, who covers the Twins. I wanted to catch up with some of my colleagues and also hear about some of the teams within these cities. Michael Russo covers the Wild for The Athletic. He also covers hockey for us nationally and is arguably the best beat writer in all of professional sports. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Alec. I appreciate it. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm on as much coffee as you drink a day, so I'm having a good time. But no, thanks for joining me. I know you've been traveling across the globe. I guess just start with this. I'm going to hop right into it. Just describe what it's been like to cover this Stanley Cup.
Well, I mean, it first started, pretty. It just wasn't very compelling. Obviously the Panthers are rolling. They had a 3-0 series lead. It easily could have gone, could have been 2-1 them, 2-1 in Edmonton. Bob stole game 1. It just, Edmonton didn't show up the first, pretty much 2.5 games. So then they started to really come on in the third period of game 3, and they've just carried that momentum now. The last 2 games, and now it's just become a fabulous series. Last night was just an incredible hockey game. Connor McDavid has absolutely proven to everybody who the best player in the world is. One of the best players, if not the best player to ever play the sport.
Wow.
With the season on the line, 8 points in his last 2 games has absolutely shattered some of Gretzky's record to get the scoring record. And even if Edmonton doesn't win the Stanley Cup, as one of 17 voters for the Conn Smythe, he's probably going to be number 1 on my ballot right now. He's just been sensational, and last night was just a perfect example where he willed his team to a win. And so now the momentum has completely shifted in this series. Florida was trying to pretend like they even getting after spanked 8-1 in Game 4 that everything was hunky-dory and fine coming back home, and now clearly to be dragged back to Edmonton, they are going to be hearing a lot of outside noise the next couple days and have to really worry about in history here. Out of the 28 times the team has had a 3-0 series lead in the Stanley Cup final, only once, and that was in 1942, did a team blow that. And, if it gets back to a Game 7, I would not put my money against Connor McDavid in that situation.
What is your earliest memory of knowing McDavid was the next thing? I don't know if you have one, but I don't know anything about hockey as an Alabama guy, and I just watch the game, I'm watching the game, this guy just moves different, so part of me just wonders how, where your mind goes when you think about first hearing about this dude.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was when he was a teenager, and it wasn't me, seeing anything firsthand. Just being even a hockey writer in the United States, you just still are only watching things on videos. You're not up watching Canadian juniors, even though he was playing in Erie. You just really didn't see a lot of them, but you just kept on hearing about this teenage prodigy that was going to be the next Sidney Crosby. And we're working on a collection of things right now at the Athletic where, there are a lot of incredible players that have played this game, including Crosby, who just think that what McDavid is doing right now is beyond special. But to your point on him being sort of, the big deal in this sport, you watch him last night and and this is somebody that's, by the way, playing hurt. Like he is probably going to have some off-season work that's needed to be done. And yet last night, when he wants to go through an entire team's defense, he absolutely can. He's just been magnificent in every step of the way, and he just plays in a video game mode that is very almost basketball-like. And you don't see that from too many people in the NHL. The only one that really, to me, comes into par with that is Nathan McKinnon. But Nathan plays almost more of a thoroughbred, reckless style, where this guy is always under control and seemingly knowing exactly what he's doing. And he has just scored highlight reel after highlight reel, either goal or setting up like he did last night on the Corey Perry winner assists all playoff long.
Yeah, the basketball comp is actually, like, to me, he's just like smooth. I don't know. Again, I don't know what I'm watching, but as I watch him, it is very fun. And you can see why, like, he could resonate nationally, which to me, for you, it's got to be a cool thing. I want to hear, I want to ask a wild question, but I want to hear from you, like, a little bit about what it has been like for you to cover the Florida Panthers in a Stanley Cup. And I don't know if you felt like it's like a career timeline checkpoint milestone considering how you started, but how you've thought about that in the arc of your career. Because to me, again, as I said at the top, like, the people who know you in this business know that you have gotten to a level that very few get to. So to be doing this and covering this team, the Stanley Cup, considering where you started, what has gone through your mind with that?
Well, I started in 95, 96, and even last night I turned to Daniel Nugent-Bowman, who's our Edmonton Oilers writer, next to me, and it was about 4 minutes in the game, and the crowd just went crazy on a bunch of a flurry of chances by Florida right before the shorthanded goal that seemed to turn things against Florida in that game. And I just said to him, like, wow, I just had this deja vu to 1996 and what it was like at Miami Arena, which is obviously 30, 45, minutes south of where we were, but it just felt exactly the same. I had all these memories, and especially the last couple weeks, talking to a lot of former players that I covered that I'm still very tight with, the Brian Skrulins, the Scott Mellanbys, the Bill Lindsays. I talked to Ole Jokinen for a story that I'm working on at Jovanovski. And so, like, you just sort of just get really, really nostalgic about how your career started, but also where this organization came from when it was really a surprise in 1993 that Anaheim and Minnesota and Florida was going to become expansion teams. It was up at the Breakers in Palm Beach, and it was absolutely not rumored at all. And at a Board of Governors meeting, they just suddenly announced it. And 3 years later, they're in the Stanley Cup final. And so, since that Stanley Cup final till about 2022, they went through basically 2 decades of total ineptitude, dysfunction, instability, a laundry list of GMs, coaches, players, owners, and a lot of losses. 10 straight years of not making the playoffs, not winning a playoff round from 1996 to 2022. And now just to see since Vinny Viola bought this team and the stability they've had since Bill Zito took over as GM, it just seems like everything. I used to always write that if they could just keep par with everything that was happening on the ice, off the ice, this team would be a real storied franchise in this league. But they never could ever figure out the baloney that happened away from the ice. And now they've absolutely added that stability off the ice, and now they've built a really quality hockey team that I think is going to be great for many, many years to come. So it really has been a treat, just to be back here. And it's hard, especially when I walk off the press elevator every night and look at my face on the press box wall. It's hard not to get nostalgic and realize how long I've been covering this league. And it's crazy because next year's year 30, but I only covered the Panthers for 10. Next year's 20 in Minnesota. and so double the time that I was in Florida, and yet I still feel like this is sort of where I grew up as a young hockey writer.
It's amazing. This is Russo Radio on the Fan. I'm Alec Lewis, filling in for Paul Allen. We're going to go one big picture wild question, and then I'm going to segue to Twins, if that's okay, Michael. And I appreciate you joining me as you're traveling across the country. What do you feel like is the most interesting question, topic, conversation around the Wild this offseason that maybe intrigues you most, or that you feel like is most important?
Well, it's funny you ask that question, and my mind is blank because I really don't think this is going to be a very compelling offseason just because they're handcuffed. I mean, it is just truly, and I know that fans don't want to hear that, and I know the Wild don't want me to announce that to the fans because they got to sell tickets next year. But it is all about getting past this final year of the $14.7 million in dead money for Parise and Suter, plus an overage that they're going to have on Marco Rossi hitting his a couple performance bonuses this past season. So they're going to have to spend about $15.2 or $3 million less than everybody else next year. And because of all the extensions last summer and last training camp and the no moves that went with that, they just don't have a lot of flexibility. So I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to figure out is, all right, we know that they have to add. They've got a lot of work to do all throughout their lineup. They've got to figure out a way to add some offensive punch on the first or second line, most likely the second line. But that winger is going to have to be somebody that's willing to come here on a 1 or a 2 year deal, just because again of the dead money. And so right away that cuts you out of all the top free agents that are out there. So that's one. Two, how are they going to figure out their penalty kill, which was just, again, god-awful last year. And, it doesn't look like they're going to really make any external moves to figure that out. So it's going to have to come from their assistant coach that they're hiring probably by the end of the month in Jack Capuano, who's going to probably take over the penalty kill and then figure it out from there. But it's going to be relying on the health of Marcus Foligno and Jared Spurgeon, a bounce-back year for Freddie Gaudreau for their penalty kill to be better. But the biggest storyline clearly is going to be what's going to happen with Philip Gustafson. There's no doubt that right now Bill Guerin, in advance of next week's draft, is trying to move him. Usually trades happen at the draft, so it's going to have to happen probably in the next week or so. And he is getting a lot more aggressive. But the problem is that the teams that are going to want to upgrade their goaltending are probably going to want higher tier guys like a Jacob Markstrom or Linus Ullmark or somebody like that. And so really, it's the next tier that Philip Gustafson falls in, and that's not an easy trade to make coming off a bad year that Philip had. So I'm really, really intrigued to figure out if they're going to roll back the goaltending next year, roll back the penalty kill, and what type of free agent they're going to get, which is just not one of those things that's probably going to excite Wild fans right now. But I think the light at the end of the tunnel is that once they get out of this cap hell that they're in for this next year, I think the sky's the limit of where they can take this team with the amount of young players that they have coming up and that are currently on the roster, and then the money that they are going to have a chance to go out and spend in free agency.
So for people who don't know how this works, you're going to be in the press box, I'm sure, of one of these rinks in Edmonton or the Panthers. Yeah. You're going to be working on trades for Gustafson. You're never stopping. You're always feeding the beast. It is. I talked to Peter Ball, our colleague at The Athletic, and he's like, "Yeah, Russo is just one of one." I said, "Yep, I experienced that." But Michael, no, thanks for hopping on. Enjoy the rest of this series. I appreciate you joining us. And when you get back here, we'll do something at some point. So thank you for the time.
Play some miniature golf or something. I appreciate the kind words, Alec. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. I'm Alec Lewis, filling in on the Fan for Paul Allen is his name. He does a pretty good job from 9 to noon every day. He's on vocal maintenance, so they tabbed the Vikings beat writer at The Athletic to fill in for him, which has been really fun. We just did hockey, which to me, that's a milestone in itself. The fact that I just talked hockey for 12
You didn't seem out of place.
No, exactly. Yeah. You got to fake it in this
industry. You did
right,
well.
exactly. Yeah. Baseball is much more familiar to me. I covered it for 3 years in Kansas City, and so I'm going to shift to the Twins because why not? You want to learn about the Wild. You want to hear about the Twins who hit a walk-off last night. We're going to bring in Dan Hayes, another one of my colleagues, another one of my favorites at The Athletic. He covers the Twins. He confirmed at 10:30 last night that he'd be good he'd be awake at this point to hop on the air. Dan, The walk-off last night. What do you got? I mean, that was fun. It's been fun over there, huh?
Why? Yeah, it has. And also first and foremost, wide awake at this time. But second, and I want you to know, I texted this to both you and Russo. Russo is one of one, except at miniature golf, where I'd like it on record that I totally thoroughly kicked his ass. I mean, it was a sporting achievement. I'd just like to get that on the record real quick, but not quite as fun as the Twins and what they're doing right now. I mean, it's funny because this is the streakiest team I've ever covered, and when they're going well, it's pretty incredible right now. Like, things just seem to happen. This is the second time on this homestand, or maybe even the third time on this homestand, where they've had a large deficit and come back and won. You know, they're down 4-0. A month and a half ago, they're down by 2 runs. They just didn't have the energy, and somehow they've tapped into it. And they're not fazed by it, because Pablo Lopez gives up the 3-run homer to Randy Arozarena in the first inning. The rain's coming. It looks like, man, there's your ball game, and they even fell behind 4-0 and find a way. Willie Castro hits a 3-run double, and they go into the break, or it looks like they're about to go into the rain break. Tied. Lopez gives up another homer in the top of the 5th, and it's 5-4. And they came back again, and they're just playing really confident baseball right now, consistently, which is pretty. I'd say it's much different than that first month of the season. I mean, this was a team that was without Royce Lewis at the time, was 7-13, and just
wow.
There was a point where Rocco pulled us aside in his office at that time. It was like, right now, with Royce out, we have to play absolutely perfect baseball. We cannot afford to blow leads. We have to win all the tight games. And that's something they've done all season somehow. They're 14-5 in 1-run games. They just seem to have the knack for these late innings and holding on and outlasting their opponents. And it definitely makes for some fun baseball, which unfortunately right now, a lot of the audience can't see because of the Comcast dispute with Bally, but
insane.
It doesn't make it any less fun.
Talking to Dan Hayes, Twins writer, here on The Fan. Dan, I was reading one of your stories about Carlos Correa. There have been plenty, and I love all of them. And I think I read some slash line that was like 585, 7. I was like, are these number? I mean, I was like, did Dan, is there a typo in The Athletic that our editors miss with these numbers? I mean, you've watched this guy play a lot. You've reported around him a long time. I mean, what has gone through your mind watching him do what he has done recently in person? Because again, we can't watch it because it's insane.
Yeah, exactly. Fully healthy is one thing. Last year he played with plantar fasciitis from mid-May to the end of the season, and it definitely sapped him of power. He couldn't connect to the ground with his foot. You could see it in his swing, and he wasn't himself. And this year he's making up for it. I mean, look, this is a guy that had 30 double plays last year. He couldn't run. His quote when we asked him why he was grinding into so many double plays was amazing, because he had to be bleeped in it. And he's just always a very honest guy, and will let you know. And he said it in spring. He felt good. The plantar fasciitis was gone. The power that he always has had has only started to recently resurface. I do think he's a guy who, and I saw some numbers on his launch angle. It was significantly lower in April because he knew that April weather isn't conducive to fly balls at Target Field. So right. He had a lower launch angle. And now that the season is getting deeper and it's getting warmer, he's starting to hit with some more launch. But what's great is that I think he has found this level in between, because, this whole hot streak started with a bunch of singles. I think he had like 8 singles and 9 hits at one point, and was just going crazy, where he had 14 hits in 5 games. And then all of a sudden it keeps going. And, then he's the player of the week, takes the day off Monday. The whole team's off Monday after the doubleheader, comes back last night and goes 3 for 4 with a walk, and just keeps going. His average, I think, is the 4th highest in the majors right now. It's up there. And it's not, it's different than what we've seen in the past, because in June 22 and in September 22, when he just absolutely carried the team, there was a little bit more power and there was some average, but it wasn't this. And it's fun to see just because, he's absolutely lived up to the contract. The stats last year were terrible, and he knew it, but he was hurt. But he lived up to the contract by staying on the field. He said that had he been going into free agency last year, he would have basically told them, I'm out of the lineup, guys. I can't do this. But because he had signed the contract, he felt like he owed the team, and he played all the way until they clinched the division. And then he missed those last 10 games of the season, rested the foot for the first time in 4 months, and came back, and we saw a different version of him in the playoffs. And basically ever since the playoffs, he's been incredible for them. And it's a lot of fun to watch just because he does, it's not just the stats. He does so many little things for them. He's a baseball savant. His IQ is one of the best I've covered. And he does just so many, whether it's talking to his teammates, where keeping his teammates engaged, whether it's trying to make them better and help them and point things out that can improve their games. He finds a lot of ways to improve the Twins, and he's a very fascinating player to cover.
I always as I read about him, the stories that you write, and just watch him in interviews, me, loving some of the exit velocity, all that stuff. I just would absolutely love to, I feel like I would have loved to just pick his brain nonstop. You can imagine that for me. Couple more for Dan Hayes, who covers the Twins for The Athletic. I could ask you, what do you think the Twins will do at the deadline? But I'm going to put you on the spot. What should they do if they're really serious? What should they do at this point?
Well, I would think starting pitching. I don't know what necessarily they're going to find out there. But a number 3 pitcher would be somebody that just can give them guaranteed good innings. It doesn't have to be elite. And I that's the thing. Look, Pablo Lopez needs to get back on track. That is the thing that's probably the biggest issue this team needs right now, is for him to look like an ace. He leads the majors in home runs allowed right now. He's very frustrated. He talked about that last night. But they also know what he is capable of. And if he gets right in time for the playoffs, that's going to be your ace. You don't need an ace. What you need is another guy. We need to see Joe Ryan be this pitcher that he is right now all the way through the season. He's had some hiccups in the middle of the summer throughout his career. I do think that the velocity is better. I think his secondary stuff is very sharp, and there's more potential to stay with being the pitcher he is right now throughout the season. That's great. So there's 2 guys. I like Bailey Ober's stuff, but he got hit in the playoffs last year, and last year was the first year he had pitched through the full year, and he didn't pitch as well at the end. Chris Paddock has flashes, but he's had a lot of rough outings. So I feel like this team really needs another starter to get them through this. And look, you can win with 3 starters in the postseason. And look at Texas last year. Yeah. They basically had Jordan Montgomery and Eovaldi. Scherzer was hurt, and their lineup was just so fierce and performing. And I think the Twins, if they're healthy, have that potential of a lineup. I mean, Royce Lewis is a game changer.
Guys.
It's incredible the last night he didn't hit a home run. I think he went 0 for 5. It was shocking he went 0 for 5, just the way he's been on. But when you have a Carlos Santana hitting 7th, and he's got an 860 OPS since April 21st, you have a pretty good lineup. You have enough guys that can carry you. Max Kepler and Brian Jeffers carried this team in May. They've both slowed down since then. Jeffers really slowed down, but it's there. The potential is definitely there. And you got Lewis. Trevor Lawrence has been a really solid addition. Jose Miranda looks like the 2022 version of himself again. Look, there are players all around that are making contributions, and I think that this is the kind of lineup that can, hang with a lot of teams and outbang teams. So get another starting pitcher to give yourself a fighting chance in those games. And I mean, hey, a guy like a Patrick Sandoval from the Angels makes a lot of sense for this team. Yeah. And the Angels have a couple arms that make a lot of sense for this team. You don't have to go and probably pay outrageous prices, but anything to fortify that rotation would be good, just because, look, Chris Paddock will hit an injury mark. This is his second Tommy John that he's come back. You can't let him throw 180 innings this year. And Simeon Woods Richardson's been really good as a rookie, but rookies have hiccups. So they're going to need some starting help, and maybe they'll look for it internally, but externally is going to be the only way they get experience, and that's probably what they need.
Yeah. That's Dan Hayes, who covers the Twins for The Athletic. I would recommend, he did a phenomenal story earlier this week on one of the Twins' assistant hitting coaches, Derek Shaman, who left the team a little bit to be with his ailing son. It was a really good story by Dan. Check that out on The Athletic. Dan, thanks for hopping on with us. Appreciate it. Enjoy the weather out there. Hope it stays dry. Thanks for hopping on. I'm Alec Lewis, filling in for Paul Allen on the Fan. When we come back, we're going to hit Vikings really heavy. So toss some questions over to me on Twitter at Alec_Lewis. I cover the team for The Athletic. Hit us on the text line. Hit us on the callback number. Anything you got, we're going to hit it hard. And then we're going to talk to J.J. McCarthy's high school coach at 11:30. This is 9 to noon. You're listening to Fan. I'm Alec Lewis. Appreciate you joining us.